I've been saying I'm not a fan of horror, but I don't think that's correct. I think I'm not a fan of a specific subset of horror, where the boogeyman is chasing you, like Mike Myers or Freddy Krueger or something like that. I say that because this, pretty much flawless. Okay, so Late Night with the Devil. This actually isn't a new movie. It came out towards the later end of last year. Limited release before it went on to Shudder, the horror streaming service that has a distribution rights. Um, anyway, I wanted to see it in theaters only because I saw that my man Dave Desmalchian was in it. And if you've seen my review of The Last Voyage of the Demeter, you know that I am low-key a super fan of this guy. I think that he can act in anything and be anyone. You can take a bunch of just Mad Lib it, pick words out of a hat, and he'll be able to act it. Russian oligarch living in 16th century Germany. He'll figure out how to make it work. The dude literally can't be typecast. And if you haven't seen my Voyage of the Demeter review, go watch it. It was a good time. Anyway, in this one, he plays Jack. Jack is a 1970s TV show host, a late night TV show host, who is always second place to Johnny Carson. And after a while, the ratings started to go down. So he decided, occultism was all the rage in the late 70s, so he decided to embrace the occult. And to save his show, he invites on a guest who claims that she has been possessed by the devil, all hoping to get a ratings boost. This movie was brought to us in a collaboration with the USA, Australia, and the UAE. And I say this because it's just I saw so many title cards when it first started. Not a critique, just something I thought, I was like, why are there so many title cards in this thing? Again, definitely not a critique, just something I thought was interesting, so I wanted to see how it happened. But yeah, 3 countries collabed. Shudder, like I said, got the distribution rights, and now we have this movie that definitely should have gotten way more attention than it did. I don't have any negative things to say about it. There's not going to be a sour in this video. There is something I am questioning, though, but it gets into spoiler territory, so I'll try to avoid that. But I'll talk about that towards the end. But anyway, let's get into this. So, the suite. What I liked, I don't really know where to... So, we'll start with the runtime, because that's something I complain about a lot. The runtime, this movie is a tight hour and a half, and it doesn't need to be any longer. It's perfect. The first 10 minutes, it's set up like a documentary. So the first 10 minutes, there's a narrator talking about everything I just said, about how, Jack was brought in to basically be this talk show host. He's second to Johnny Carson. He was charming. He was good man. People loved him, but he could just never cross that threshold. And he started, feeling the pressure because, no one remembers second place, I think is a line in here, something like that. So after a while, he, decides to do this show on Halloween in 1977 where he invites this girl who's supposedly possessed. All of that exposition, I love how it was set up in the first 10 minutes because that whole thing in those 10 minutes, it was technically an exposition dump, which I normally get on, but it was done so well because it was telling you while showing you. It gave you so much information. It told you exactly what you needed to know so that when the movie started, you could just enjoy it. You didn't really have any questions. And I also liked that they dropped in little pieces of information, in this at the beginning of the scene and during the movie itself, where they told you something about something, but they didn't go too deep into it and take a bunch of runtime with extraneous details. So, like for example, there's this gentleman, we'll call it a gentleman's club that exists, and there's a minute devoted to it where it says, hey, yeah, it was a bunch of rich guys that you would get together and do things in secret that nobody knew about, and that's it. So they tell you that, and then you find out that, someone in this movie was a member of this club. Now, a movie could have done a whole thing where they showed you scenes from the club and taken you and introduced you to a bunch of new characters and all that stuff, but they don't. They just let you know this club existed. It was somewhat shady, and this person was in it. And when you learn that, then you can say, oh, okay, so maybe this is what was happening in this club. Maybe this person did X, Y, and Z. And as the movie unfolds, you get those answers, you know? So it plants that seed, and then it develops it without taking unnecessary time. I dug that. The movie itself, I love the way it was shot. So it's a combination of, it's shot, and most of it's shot like, you know, in the 4:3 aspect ratio. So it literally looks like a 70s TV show. If I were to walk in a room, I would think someone's watching an old show. It even has like a 70s filter, if you will. And then the behind the scenes stuff is in black and white. And I loved that. So it's like I said, it's filmed like an actual talk show. So Dave Dastmalchian's character, Jack, he actually starts off with like a monologue. You know, he talks about, I think President Carter's doing something that day. Then he talks about, hey, we got a great show for you tonight. Here's what's going to happen. He has a medium, he has a skeptic, and then he has the girl who's been possessed. Those are going to be his three guests, and then he even has like a musical guest to follow. So just like a talk show that we'd see today, you know. So dug that. Now I hadn't watched the trailer, so I thought this movie was focused solely on the girl. But she doesn't actually come in maybe a good like 30, 35 minutes, which again, I really like, because before that, we get to see this psychic medium and this skeptic go back and forth, just like you see on a regular TV show. I dug that. I really like their characters. And then the commercial breaks where we see the behind the scenes footage in black and white. It's so good. Dave Dastmalchian, I'm gonna brag on him a bit. He is spectacular in this movie. He is so easy to root for as a main character. That the documentary piece I mentioned in the beginning also mentions he had a bit of a tragedy that happened to him. So, you know, you want him to be successful. Even though the way he's going about it, you know, you may disagree with, like, you don't want to bring on a child who may be actually possessed, or who may think she's possessed and need help. Like, you may disagree with that, but what he's doing, it's not an act. Like, he's not a good guy on camera, then behind the scenes he's a total jerk who's just completely obsessed with being number one and doesn't care about people, and that's it. He keeps the same demeanor the whole time. He's asking people, are you okay? He's making sure that people get help and all that stuff. Not to say he's perfect. There are a couple decisions he's making. It's like, okay, we can't tell this person X, Y, Z. But I mean, he's not a total jerk that you would think someone like that would be. So I dug those behind the scenes looks. I also dug just seeing how the cast and crew were reacting as the night continued. So I guess a minor spoiler. As the night continues, some weird stuff is happening. And you know, the cast is like, hey, you know, I didn't touch this. I don't know why this happened. Those lights should not have gone on. That sound should not have happened. I don't know what's going on. I dug that, just seeing them progressively get more and more paranoid. Also, the audience themselves, you know, we get shots of the audience where we see them, you know, start to believe, disbelieve, see their reactions to things. It was just overall just a great showing. Now, I want to get back to the actors just for a bit. Now, I talked about Dave Dastmalchian. I could talk about that man the whole time. He was spectacular, like I said. And everyone else was also okay. There was no bad performance in this movie. Everyone from the audience members, the ones they chose to interview, to the general audience, to the guests that they had, all the guests that they had, I thought were great. And they all had a moment to shine. I thought that the people behind the scenes, like I said, the cast and crew behind the scenes, they did a good job at selling this as this is a real show and something weird is happening. But I think after Dave Dastmalchian himself, it has to go to the little girl who played the possessed girl, Lily. I'm going to look up her name. Ingrid Torelli. That is the young actress's name. I had to say her name because she was amazing. She was so creepy in this movie. Like, you actually think when you see her, you're like, oh, she's definitely possessed. I mean, because again, the movie, you know, it kind of it doesn't directly tell you that like, hey, demons and demonic possession are real. But when she comes on scene, you're like, oh, I can believe that it exists in the world this movie exists in. She is so good at just being off. Like, she comes off as sweet and innocent, but she does things that are just weird. The inappropriate smiling she does, the inappropriate laughs, laughing at things that she shouldn't be laughing at. Um, Making jokes and observations she shouldn't be making. The way she says Jack's name over and over and over again, like being overly familiar with him. Like, oh, thank you, Jack. Oh, why are you leaving, Jack? What do we do next, Jack? What's happening after commercial break, Jack? What camera should I be looking at, Jack? Like, she keeps saying it over and over again. But the thing that gets me is when she first comes on, she does this thing where she like slowly just looks at the camera and they're like, you don't have to do that. And then she keeps just staring at the camera, which is us. She's looking at us, the viewer, and just chef's kiss to that moment because that legit creeped me out. And I mean, if I wasn't drawn in, that would have drawn me in. She was excellent. From beginning to end, there's not a moment where this movie slowed down. The movie always had something on screen and it was always important and it was always interesting, most of all. I loved every single minute of it. I think it's something that if you're a horror fan, you should definitely watch. This one gets, it gets a 5 out of 5 from me. I really don't have anything bad to say about it. And I wish I could say more than it's just a good story, but that's going to get into spoilers and I don't want to do that. But go watch it, come back here, we can talk about it. Now, there's one thing I do want to talk about that is spoiler territory. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it. Or if you don't care, we can talk about it. Now, it's a question, legit a question, because I might have missed this when I watched it, and I'm definitely going to watch this again, but there's a deal in this movie, right? Between a devil and, our main character, obviously, Jack. And in the deal, it's like, hey, you will become number one, but I get your soul and your wife has to die, basically. His wife dies, but he never becomes number one. So I'm a little, like that plot point, maybe I missed something, but I'm a little confused by that. Like the deal, wasn't upheld. I mean, to deal with a demon, so I guess I shouldn't be surprised that it was sneaky, but he was supposed to be number one. That was supposed to be what he got, right? And he didn't get it. He was always behind Johnny Carson. So I'm not really sure what the ending of this movie, kind of revealed what he did. And I'm not really sure. I don't really get how the deal happened. Maybe I'm watching too much Supernatural, but the demon is supposed to hold up their end of the bargain and it didn't happen. So I don't really get how, what happened in the end with basically him giving up his soul and everything and giving up his career and losing. I don't get how that was kind of a fair trade. But again, like I said, the rules may be different here than they are in Supernatural. Who knows? Anyways, that's all I had to say. Thank you for watching, guys. I'm out.